All right, so today is July 15th, 2016. This is a free coaching on Evernote and just digital organization. My name is Andy Traub. My internet home is at takepermission.com, and we're just going to go through these questions one by one, and we'll start with you, Josh. If everybody else can mute out for me, that would be great. Josh, you had said that you're most frustrated with content scattered over multiple services and platforms.
Yeah.
Example, Josh, of what those other platforms
are. Well, I'm self-employed, so for my work, I use a lot of Basecamp. I use Google Drive a lot, and it's kind of getting to the place where I've got lots of different projects going on, and like if I could just have like one sort of portal where I go there and that's got like everything, that would be awesome. Like I'm sort of imagining, I'm hoping that Evernote could possibly be almost like an umbrella where, like I know Basecamp is better for project management and stuff like that, and Google Drive. From what I understand, at least more people are familiar with Google Docs. So if I'm collaborating on a document with a client,
right?
I don't know if Evernote is better for that or not. I don't know, but I just got I've got content across mostly those things, and then I use Instagram and Facebook, and then they got like photos in the cloud, and it's kind of like if I could just kind of like trim my trees of content and like kind of bring them down to a little more. That's kind of
so there's a lot of advantages to all of those individual tools. So for instance, if you're sharing a document with someone, if you want to have 10 people looking at the same document, I could open up a Google Sheet or a Google just document right now and put a link in our chat, and we all could be in there typing in just the next 20 seconds. And there's real power to that, right? And some people use Google Drive like they use Dropbox. They just put files in there. It's their file system. Other people use Google Drive for collaboration, like Basecamp, where, hey, here's a folder and we're going to share it. Other people use Evernote for those things. Other people just use Basecamp. And I think the problem that you're running into is very common, which is that that each one of those tools is better at one thing than another tool, and so you're using it for that. And so that's why you want them to all have a baby, right? Is because you want Evernote to handle reminders and tasks better, right? You want Evernote to be better at sharing like Google Drive is or Google Docs, right? And you want all these things to be better. And, like when Evernote came out with their work chat, I was so frustrated by it. I hardly ever use it. I find it very confusing. And I thought to myself, why can't they just look at Google and go, we're going to do exactly what they do without breaking any copyright laws, right? Yeah. Because Google just has it figured out, right, with the chat and things like that. And so, first of all, I understand your frustration. What I think you've got to be willing to do in all of this is we have to be willing to at some point compromise.
Yeah.
Say, I'm going to use less tools because that advantage of having less tools to maintain is a larger advantage than the ease of one or two features.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I would challenge your use of Google Drive and ask, what are you really using it for? Are you using it for collaborative documents? Are you using it for document storage? What are you using it for?
It's primarily, I've got, so just like a quick background, what I do for like my business is I work with speakers and consultants and stuff and help them turn either their talks, like a sermon series or talks or lectures, and I take that and I have a team of people and we basically turn that into a physical book or into a Kindle book. So what happens is like we start with a really, really, really rough manuscript, and then there's like 2 or 3 people who've got their eyes on it.
Right.
It's constantly evolving and growing. So having a single spot where multiple people can have access to is useful. But I think I'm kind of hitting this tipping point where it's like, okay, I can handle like 2 or 3 at a time. Like I can watch over multiple outposts for 2 or 3 book products at a time. But it's starting to get to the place where it's like, okay, and I'm like got 4 or 5 or 6 at a time. It's like, I've got to find a way to simplify and streamline stuff. And so I think your point about compromise is a really good one. So I don't know
Well,
if that.
and, the conversation I had yesterday with someone was they were talking about in Basecamp, you can duplicate certain projects, but you can't duplicate, like, I think it was to-dos or something like that.
Yeah,
Like, you can use them as a template, and that's frustrating. And so I would just say that it's great when services talk to each other. Evernote just announced it's on the Android app. It's also on the web version. Some integration, and I say loosely integration, with Google Drive, and that, you can put a link to a Google Drive. It has a Google Drive icon now, and you can click on that and go through your Google Drive files and say, okay, I want this one to be attached inside of this Evernote note, which is great. But what would be really great is if I could somehow open that document inside of Evernote, so I'm not leaving. Because all it really ends up being is a link to a Google Doc, which I could have done that before.
Yeah.
Just add a little button for navigation. So I want to answer your question directly as I can, which is that I think you have to not force Evernote to be something it's not great at, and it's not great at reminders. It will work, but it's not as good as Basecamp might be.
Yeah.
It's not as good at collaborative deadline management. Something like Asana or Basecamp would be better than that. I think that Evernote is the best tool on the planet for all those scraps of ideas, those emails. But if you really lean into Basecamp, you could have Basecamp do some of those things as well. So I like Evernote as my brain for all of the little pieces. When it comes to book collaboration, I think that Google Docs is definitely your best. When it comes to laying out chapters and moving things around and editing documents. Where I might use Evernote for, if I was you, is I would use it for keeping track of communication, keeping track of leads, keeping track of smaller pieces of information that will benefit your projects or just your brain power.
Yeah.
Because I know about Basecamp enough to know that everything has to sort of live inside the project.
Yeah.
But what do you do with your leads? Where are you keeping track of your leads? Where are you keeping projects you've already completed? So what I would do is I would get, and I know you probably have one of these, I would just go old school, go whiteboard, and just say, what are the pieces of my project? What am I working with? And then say, for every project, I know I need to have this, 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 and this. And to do that, what is the best tool for that? And if you can eliminate a tool, try to eliminate a tool.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Maybe everything starts in Evernote, and then you dump it out of Evernote and goes into Basecamp. Right?
Yeah, I feel like that's probably more of maybe what I've been looking for is, it's like when you're only working with a few projects, you can kind of do it you kind of make it up as you go along. But you kind of hit this point where it's like, okay, I now have to have a template, like a process that I carry into every single project. Okay, we're doing the same thing each time, and I have that to an extent. But I guess it's sort of been just like, whichever service or online platform.
Yeah, because the problem is to make something new in Basecamp is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, like, let's just say you're going to get a new someone new onboarded. So I think that having a checklist in Evernote is a great way to onboard people. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'll show you an example of this.
Sure.
Evernote. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen, Josh. All right. So let me go here. So this is my podcasting template. And all it is this is a link to another note in Evernote. This is a horizontal line you can insert. And then these are just check boxes, right? Okay. But I know that when I get an idea for a podcast or whatever it might be, this could be a lead that you get, you would forward that to your Evernote and tag it lead, right, or prospect. And you've just got a bunch of those going. And then once that person says, yes, I'm ready to move forward, then you can have a series of things you need to do, right? And that can be where you would have a template, say I tagged this template, and I would just highlight this template right here, and I would make a new note, or I could go up here and right-click and duplicate the note and give it a new title for the new. And so this is your personal process. And one of those things could be start a new Basecamp project. right?
Yeah.
But Basecamp is not the place to do that. It's
Yeah.
probably somewhere else. So, Basecamp is great if you know that they're your client, but it's because you pay by project, don't you?
You pay for how much storage you're using, I believe. And you have like a maximum, you can have like 10 or 15 projects at a time.
Okay. Right. So, but there's still limitation.
Yeah.
Again, I would just step back and say, if I didn't have any tools, what is the information that is passing through my hands, and then sort of reapply. But frankly, Josh, I'm like you. I use Dropbox. I use Google Drive. In the order of what I use Evernote the most, and then I use Dropbox. Right after that. So if you took away Evernote and Dropbox, like I would be really hurting my business. Like I really would be, and just my ideation. But I think that Google Drive is best for collaboration of sort of an ongoing document. That's where I would lean on that. But I would lean on it. Not very. I wouldn't run my whole business through Google Drive simply because I just think about this. Look at the left side of my screen here.
Mm-hmm.
I can see 30 notes right here.
Yeah.
In Google Drive, it's really hard to see that many notes at once, right?
Yeah.
But it's visually kind of dancing around.
Sure.
We can come back to that a little bit, but does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of brought on some new questions I'll throw in the chat. You can hit them.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's move on to Dan. Organizing notes and class teachings. Dan, can you unmute for me?
Sure.
Hey, all right, awesome. So what class are we talking about?
I teach classes and I attend some online classes. So I take notes on, I develop notes for teaching classes, seminars, workshops.
Okay, great.
I'm also working on a blog and a book.
Okay, so, great. Awesome. So when you say organizing, Dan, are they on paper or are they digital? Where are the notes now?
Most are on Google Drive.
Okay, great.
I use Google Drive quite a bit. Evernote, I'm just getting into that now.
Okay, all right. So one issue I would have, and I think Google Drive is a great place to take notes. I love Google Drive. Like it gets better all the time. And a quick aside, Google Docs voice recognition inside of Google Docs is phenomenal. Like Google's voice recognition is just great. So if you ever want to do some speech to text and you just feel like trying it out, now it's built into every Mac, but Google's voice recognition stuff is phenomenal. So Dan, for those existing notes, and you said I want to organize them, I think that you could always use the traditional file structure of Google Drive to organize those things. I really like the search. I like how easy. If I'm just going to say I'm going to take 100 different individual notes or documents, we'll call them. I'm going to put them in Drive or I'm going to put them in Evernote. The advantage, I think, of Evernote is if I'm searching for some word, I can type it in Evernote. It's going to find all the notes that have that word, and I can just scroll through and it's going to highlight that word. Drive, you can do the same thing. You can search, but getting in and out, navigating through those, to me, is just a little bit more problematic. But, the other thing is getting that text out. I mean, are you compiling that at some point, or is it really just there for you to reference? Does that make sense, Dan?
Well, I do create like handouts for my classes.
Okay.
So what I found though, I'm still on Windows 7, which I kind of like still, but the search capabilities are really poor compared to previous versions of Windows. Even searching for a file, even after I have it indexed, I found it really something's missing.
Yeah. So I would not rely on Windows search. And in the same way, I don't really rely on Mac search. I really try to keep as much as I can in Evernote or in my Google Drive, and then use the web search. So I mean that's the problem, right? It's like, hey, everything's in there. Okay, but great, can you find it? Right? And the answer is, I don't know if I can find it or not. I don't know if it's. I just know it's in that pile over there. And that's not true organization. It's just not, right? So I would say that if you're not really happy with your system, you really need to figure out what's your greatest need. And if your greatest need is a really clean place to take notes, I think Evernote can do that for you. If it's collaboration, I think Google Drive is probably going to beat Evernote in that category. But if it's to recall and to compile, I really like Evernote for that, because its search functionality is so powerful. So you could, tag individual notes with the name of a course, and then you can go search by that tag, and you've got your 25 individual documents or notes that relate to that, to that course. It's very easy to compile those. So let me just
ask a question about Evernote.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can you pull in like email notes into Evernote too?
Absolutely. So let me show you an example of this. Okay. Let me share my screen again. Go over my Evernote. So let's just say, Dan, you're doing a class on podcasting. Okay. Or you took notes. And so I'm going to just do a quick, so that I'm going to find all my notes that have anything to do with podcasting. Okay. So if you saw it, you're seeing my screen here, Dan?
Yep.
Okay, great. About 50% of the time I forget to share my screen, and people are like, hey, Andy.
That's all right.
All right. So you can see here, I typed in the word podcasting up here. 71 notes have the word podcasting in them, and it will highlight it. So if I click here, you can see it's right there. If I click here, there it is right there. Okay. So one of the functionalities of this, if you're talking about compiling information, is, and watch this closely, okay, is when you click on an individual note, and then I hit shift and I click on another note, you see how, Dan, it kind of adds a couple here, and if I keep clicking on this, it literally throws them in.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Okay. But watch this. If I hit Command A, for you it would be Control A, I just collected and selected 71 notes. It says 71 notes selected. Make sense?
Yeah.
So I've highlighted 71 Evernote notes that have the word podcasting in them. Now, you could do this via a word. You could do it via a tag, right? Josh, you could do it via a client, okay? And then you can add a tag to all of those notes, right? Add multiple tags. You can move them to a notebook. You could start a presentation where you go from note to note to note to note to note. You wouldn't do that with 71 notes, but you might want to do it with a different kind. You can merge them into one. That's like the self-destruct button. That would be really bad. You can share them with people. You can save all the attachments that are in those notes onto your desktop, right, which is kind of a cool feature. But here's what I want to show you. This is when it comes to the compilation feature, okay? Create table of contents note. 99% of Evernote users don't know you can do this, okay? So this is where you're going to get your money's worth today, all right? So create table of contents note. It just created a note with 71 links to other notes that have the word podcasting in them. And it's called it table of contents. So you call this podcasting course material.
Andy, how does it sort them? Does it like just randomly?
It's going to sort them, I believe, in the same way. Josh, that's a great question. Man, that was a good question. All right, because I want to find out. So the first time we just sorted by sort of default, and I think it went by updated. What I'm going to do is, let's just remember how to podcast and product blueprint and plot. I think it sorted them by date. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to delete that note. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to do podcasting. All right. All right, we have 71 notes. Okay. And this time, so right now it's sorted by when they were updated. See these dates? So if I flip this and I hit updated, and the oldest one is from 8/25/11, I'm going to highlight them all again. All right. And what I'm seeing, I'm going to see if when I create the table of contents note, if it's going to order them via when they were updated, but I reversed it. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I switched the order, created a table of contents note, and it looks like it did switch them. So it's going to order them whatever you're seeing in your sidebar. That's how it will order them. And in your sidebar, you can always sort by author, when it was created, what notebook it's in, the size, source URL, tags, when it was updated. Okay? So once they're in here, then of course you could say, this is module 1, right? And you can start cutting and pasting these. And all these are called note links, and they're links to other Evernote notes. Again, 99% of Evernote users don't use this feature. It's the killer feature in Evernote, okay? So you can click here, and it's going to go to another Evernote note. You can go back to your table of contents, okay? So some of this is a little bit manual. You're sort of creating a file structure. But the simple fact, Dan, that you could go and say, I want to search by this word or this tag, and I'm going to make one note that has all these other notes linked to it is pretty darn powerful. And then the best thing you can do is take that note that you're working on, right, and then move it over here to your shortcuts. And then you've got, shortcuts to your most common or most useful notes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me delete this. All right. So what are your thoughts on that, Dan? Is that something you feel like you might be able to utilize?
Yeah, that's really powerful. The other question I have is, do you have? I saved too many old notes, like old revisions of stuff. Do you have a way you can delete stuff that's a certain age automatically after it reaches a certain point, so you don't keep compiling?
When you have the paid version of Evernote, you can look at older versions as you refine. So you could sort by date, and then that way you would be able to see which is the older, right?
Okay.
But I guess I'm not exactly sure. Are you revising it, and are there two of them now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have multiple revisions when I'm creating a note, creating a course.
Right.
Just so you don't lose what you had after a while. So I have multiple revisions, and I should be able to just delete those and delete old.
Yeah, I don't know that. If you're talking about separate documents, then yeah, you're going to have to go in and individually delete those. But just know that with Evernote, I won't do my screen share again, but there's an I in the corner, and that's information for the file, and you can see revisions, other versions. I don't know how common that is for you, but I don't. There's very few times in my life I've had to go back and go, what was this 3 versions ago? It's sort of
yeah. Usually you can just go.
Yeah, just keep moving. Just move forward. Keep moving.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Awesome. Glad that was helpful. Dave, I've got too much coming at me, which is not digital. Dave, can you unmute for me?
Yep.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. It's a great concern. It's very common as I look at this paper over here on my desk. What is coming at you that's not digital that you care about?
Well, I don't get a lot of mail anymore, just snail mail anymore. So that's pretty easy. But the thing is, I go to a lot of meetings where, I end up with a packet that somebody gives me. And, I'm either saying to them, can you send that to me electronically? Or I'm going back and I'm scanning it. Everything in my work system is electronic. I try to keep it there. But I'm spending a lot of extra time trying to input data from other sources. And I don't know that there is an easy problem an easy solution other than trying to train other people. But it just seems like it would be so much easier if I could just get everything digitally fast.
Yeah, I do think that there's a solution. And I would say that the tide is changing to where, usually when I see a presentation or when I get a handout, the next thing I hear is, hey, I'll email you the slides, or hey, I'm going to make sure everybody gets a copy of this in their inbox. Like, we want to have it in front of us today for the meeting, but, I can email you the PDF as well, right? Like, I don't know what industry you're in, but the world I'm in, when people see a slide deck, they go, at the end, I'll give you a link to get the slides, right? So I think the question then becomes, there's 2 questions, which is, well, maybe it's 3. One is there a solution? Absolutely, there is, and I think it's Evernote. Second is, what's the right way to go about that, right? And that's to, hopefully people would say, and I'll email this out as well, but if they don't, then you can just say, hey, can you shoot that to me? The next question is, how do you get it into Evernote? And the beautiful part of all this is, if Josh did a slide deck and he's got, secrets to great, amazing wealth, and 2 weeks later I remember, oh yeah, he did that slide deck and he talked about wealth. Whether it's a PowerPoint file, an Office document, or a PDF, and PDFs are the best actually for this. Usually PDFs sit there and they're just like locked in, like we don't do anything with them, they're sitting on our hard drive. In Evernote, if you drop them in, they become searchable. So I can type the word wealth and out comes that slide from Josh's presentation. So your challenge, Dave, is going to be to get that stuff into Evernote from those people. And I would encourage you as well, am I hearing you that you're at meetings and you're taking notes, and that's another issue, right? You've got to...
Right. Yeah. Not only am I taking my own notes, and I actually prefer to take my own notes, just by writing them as opposed to typing them in meetings.
As you should.
Yeah, and that's manageable because I can quickly, scan that into my system. But when I attend presentations or I attend meetings, I like to make sure I have the hard copy so I'm not writing down what people are putting on the screen or expecting me to retain later.
Do you have a Android or iOS?
iOS.
iOS, okay. So this is an iOS-only app, and I know that you've got a scanner, but I don't know how much paper we're talking about. But Evernote's capabilities for scanning are great within their app. They have a scanner. It's about $400 that you can get. I don't have that one, but it's very, very powerful. But in addition, if you're talking about a document that's probably less than 40 or 50 pages, then they have an app called Scannable. Are you familiar with it?
I just learned about that on your previous webinar.
Okay. So the power of Scannable is that it's you holding your camera and then turning the page, it'll take a picture. Turn the page, it'll take a picture. It just keeps, it's like your little digital assistant, right? You don't have to take a picture. It'll keep taking the pictures of it. So I think that's a real solid option for you. The best option, obviously, is, just email me the PDF and I'll forward it into my account via email, right?
Right.
So let's just say in this presentation, I had a PDF. Or you go to my takepermission.com/free guides and you go, Andy, this is great, all these PDFs, thank you. But what are you going to do with them? Well, if you forward them into Evernote, right, or you drag and drop them, then they become searchable in about 15 or 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's where you just want to move that analog or that file over into Evernote and then make it searchable. The key for you is going to be, how do you get it in there physically? Is it an email? Do you have to scan it? And the other is, you need to remember, Dave, to tag those things appropriately.
Right.
Right when you put them in there for the very first time. And you can do that in the Scannable app, or you can do that via email.
What has your experience been like if you're attending a workshop or a conference and people putting slides up on a screen that you're not sure that you're going to be able to get hard copy of? Are you able to take decent pictures of the screen?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll take a picture. Or you open up Evernote and you start, But I hope, and maybe I'm just being idealistic, but I'm just kind of hey, why are we locking down our slides? Send me that thing that has your logo and contact information on it, also known as your slides, right? So again, maybe I'm kind of dodging the question because it's well, they should just send you the slides.
Right.
But no, then yeah, our pastor did a preaching series. It was only 2 weeks, but he said, what would Jesus say to Hillary Clinton? Next week was, what would Jesus say to Donald Trump? And I took a picture of it because it was a great, great graphic. It was really, really interesting. And so I know that if I type in Evernote Trump, I have one note in there that would say Trump. Right? And it was that picture from that. Because any picture you take that has text in it would, that would display. But, I don't like every time they put up a slide, you go, we look like idiots, right? So that's where, I don't know if you can be the change agent in your industry or not, but people should be giving you those slides.
Right.
If not, then yeah, unfortunately, you're going to have to maybe just take some pictures of stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Good question. And you were at the other one, so maybe you know this, but when you're emailing that, let's say Josh sends you his slide deck via email. When you're emailing that into your Evernote account with your custom email address, and I wrote a blog post about this 2 days ago. So takepermission.com, it's the next post down. It talks about how to do this. But making sure you're adding tags when you forward it in there, and you just add that to your subject line. It's, as the kids say, hashtag, but, it's a pound symbol. But pound, and then it's pound, and then it's, the name of your tag. That's how you can tag notes automatically from email into your Evernote account.
Sometimes I've often found, though, is just, putting everything into my inbox, getting everything to my inbox, and then that forces me to review what I've put in.
Yeah.
So I can make decisions. Do I really need to keep this? What do I, because sometimes I'm just putting things in because I think I might need them later. Yeah.
And that's the other problem is with Gmail. If you're using Gmail, it's got great search functionality as well, but there's nothing more frustrating than knowing, like, I know it's here, but where is it?
Right.
And that's where really putting stuff in Evernote and tagging it is really helpful. So I know that my wife and I are getting away for a couple of days in a week or so, and we have a hotel reservation. I know when I did that reservation, I put it in Evernote. And they sent me a reminder this morning via email, and I deleted it because I know it's in Evernote already, right? So again, it's one of those things that you just want that peace of mind, you want that clarity. And it's up to you to create a system for that. But my encouragement to you, Dave, and anyone else is don't try to operate under someone else's system, because that's like saying, hey, if you would just think how I think, fat chance, right? That's not how it works, right? If we can't get our spouse to think like we think, we're not going to get anyone else to think like we think, right? Like, we're individual people. So find a system that works for you and the way your brain thinks. That's what Josh's original question was. How do I work within my system? So is that helpful, Dave?
Very much. Thank you very much.
Awesome. You're welcome. Dan had said too much email to organize. Dan, I'm down with that. Dan, do you use Gmail? You can unmute for me. That would be great.
All right.
There we go.
Yes, I do. I have Yahoo Mail and a Gmail account, two different.
Okay. So in Gmail, have you ever set up a filter?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So for instance, all my email from Josh automatically goes to my spam. I'm just kidding. That's not true. Josh is my friend. That's why I was making a joke at him. But no, but let's just say, Josh, I want all my Josh mail to go into my Canadian folder, right? Like, because that has to be quarantined. I'm just kidding. I love you, buddy. But so you could set it up and you just go into your settings and then filters. But when you want to keep your inbox uncluttered, you would just start to create these rules for different emails. And that's one way to keep it uncluttered is if I'm a newsletter subscriber, all my newsletters automatically go into another folder. If you're talking about using these tools to keep your email box less cluttered, my encouragement to you would be to follow the advice. And I'm going to go find this article real quick. I just read this article the other day, and it's basically the scientifically studied best method of handling email. And I think that most of us know, if we're doing a good job with our email or not, and most of us aren't, if we're really being honest with each other, with ourselves. And let me I've got the article here. And what it really comes down to is that you're probably checking your email wrong, which is that, and I do it the same way. I'm in rehab about this right now. Like, I'm in treatment for my email inbox. And I put it in there, which is how to check your email box efficiently. And the problem is that we're not really, like, I've never cut half my lawn. I cut my whole lawn at once, right? But so many of us I check the email for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and I don't take action on those things. And I keep touching them again and again.
Yeah.
So if you want to really clean up your inbox, but you still want to save things, then I think you need to either start using labels inside of Gmail and just getting things out of your inbox, or start forwarding actionable items into Evernote and label it action, and then go find that action label, and when it's done, delete the label, and then so you kind of get stuff out of your inbox over into another program that is more searchable or whatever. But I'm a hybrid of, I leave things in my inbox I want to take action on. But like probably today, I'll probably be in my inbox for 2 solid hours because I've been sitting on too many things like, oh, I'll do that later, I'll do that later. 120 emails to do later, which some point you just go, I'm going in. I'm going to go do the deep clean.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where you put on some, Bruce Springsteen or whatever your jam is, and you just get after it, So
I need to clean some of my folders. I got a couple of hundred folders in my email even. So.
Yeah, here's another encouragement for all of us. You can do this financially. I didn't mean to talk about Trump so much, but he knows how to do this well, which is declare bankruptcy. Sometimes you got to do that with email. Sometimes you just got to go, listen, if no one is knocking on my door and I haven't seen the sheriff send me a summons, I'm going to mark them all as red. Not RED, but READ. Like, just mark them as red and archive them and move on with your life.
Yeah.
If somebody really needs you, they'll get a hold of you. They'll send you another one, right?
Good idea. Thanks.
Sure. Take the pressure off. All right. All right. So Dave says, need help using Evernote to track tasks too. I think that the best way to use Evernote, you can certainly use the reminders feature. You certainly can do that. I like using Evernote for workflows, not really for tasks. I might be moving everything into Evernote for tasks, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different task management systems. I use Noseby, but I'm, again, like Josh said, I'm kind of tired of having another tool out there to use. So I might be moving, back into Evernote to have my tasks there as well. But yeah, I mean, that's really a preference thing. I'm trying to do, 80 or 90% of my workflow inside of Evernote. Not because it's the best tool for all those things, but it's one tool, right? And if I can really master that one tool, then, sometimes I go, okay, yeah, great, it's better, but I got my system figured out. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where I am. I mean, I'm using Nirvana HQ, which works very well, but it would just be nicer if I could have it all in one place. And with reminders, I think reminders it's just a little clunky. It's not it's not as convenient as some of the other.
Dave, what about this? Like, what is a reminder? A reminder is I want a task done on what? A date. So why can't I look at all my reminders on a calendar?
Yeah.
Right. And it's I had this revelation like 2 days ago. I was like, why can't I see my reminders on a calendar? Because reminders are based on time. Like, this doesn't seem revolutionary to me.
Right.
It's like when are you going to be there? I don't know. I just have a big list. Like, look at a calendar. Oh yeah, a calendar. That would help me know when to be there. So I'm with you. It's clunky, but it might just be worth having stuff in one place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there, even the interface doesn't help because reminders is stuck at the top of a column. Right. It's just sort of like, if you're really serious about it, get serious about it and make it another window or give me a calendar view. I would love to be able to drag notes into a different day and say, I want to have this one due on this day, right? And again, I don't have the ear of the new CEO of Evernote, but, I hope they improve that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always keep asking people who use Evernote if they've got a better system, if they've got something figured out. Because
you need to ask Evernote if they have a better system.
Well, that's true.
Because they need one, right?
Yeah.
I think you're probably using it the best you can. But yeah, it's unfortunate. The one thing I will say though is that I found this out the other day. You can create notes in the reminder area. So let me show you this real quick. I always thought you had to go create a note and then add it as a reminder. But if you go up here, I don't think I have any reminders, so that's probably why it's not going to show up. But let me go up here. Oh, here, see this reminders right here? Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so you can add a reminder in the inbox. If you click here, call Dave, right? So you can do it right there, and then it's a reminder. So I always thought you had to go over here, make a new note, and then go up here and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
But again, I'd love to see that in a calendar view, right? And then, what's the date on that? To change the date, I got to go up here, and use this not intuitive. That's marked it as done. Anyway, so we see the
right, and there's no way to do repeating reminders. So if you have a task that you need to do on the first of every month, there's no way of doing that.
That's crazy talk, Dave. You're getting out of control. So no, and again, like I think Evernote is like, I don't know, I'm spitballing here, like 3 or 4 features from being just a killer app, like the killer app. But I don't know how far those features are out of grasp. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think if enough of us keep talking about it, maybe it'll happen.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though. There's a lot of people who complain about Evernote that are Evernote users. So there's something I like about it. I've never seen a company blog that has more negative comments from users. Like, here's a new feature, and they're like, what about this one? It's like, I would never be that cruel to Evernote because, like, they cancel my account, I'm going out of business. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to track tasks. What I would suggest you do, and report back and say, Andy, you owe me a 6-pack of beer, you jerk, or thank you so much, that was a great idea. I might just for a week just use Evernote exclusively and see if you can find a way to make it work. And that would be, in regards to your tasks and reminders, And it's probably going to be a mix of your shortcuts. So these are the most common notes you're going to put a shortcut to. And so they're reminders because they're in that shortcut area. Or having a single note that has your project and then tasks underneath it. So you really got one master note of all your tasks. So there's no time or date attached to that. Or use the reminders, and really for each topic, each task, you go make a reminder for it, right? But those are different ways that you could say, well, what are my next 10 tasks? They're my first 10 shortcuts. Right? There's no date, or maybe there is a date. Or I just make one note for each project, and I've got a bunch of tasks inside of that. Or you do use that calendar function.
Yeah.
You know, but those are all different ways to sort of attack the same problem.
Right. Thank you.
Sure. Onboarding Evernote into my day-to-day work life. You know, Josh, I think that the problem with Evernote is that it's something that if you use it a little bit is really frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I think you're kind of there where you're kind of in and out of it. And it just becomes sort of another place where you might have left your car keys, but you're not so sure. So versus I know this is where we put all of our keys, so it's in this pile. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in the day-to-day life, my only advice to that is lean in and just use it for as much as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Like that's why I say it's like your brain, right? Like where are your memories? They're not in your shoe, like they're in your brain, right? So where's your stuff? My stuff is either in my inbox or it's in Evernote. Period.
Yeah. And there's a couple things that I've heard you say since I threw the question that I kind of like. I feel like I'm beginning to answer the question for myself. I think your comment to Dave, I think it was, about just use Evernote just for a week, just to, you know, I think something like that. Like, oh yeah, I could do that. It's like I can do anything for a week. Well, I think most of it. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I think another thing that's kind of been becoming a little more clear to me is that really my problem isn't necessarily an Evernote problem. I think the symptoms might be showing up as I'm trying to add Evernote to something, but I think the problem might be is like I just actually don't really have a really clear structure for just my work stuff. Like I do. Right. So you kind of hit this point where it's like, okay, the way I used to organize is no longer working very well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So, yeah, so it's like, I guess maybe this might be the perfect time to start really jumping into Evernote because like I got to kind of set up a new schedule, structure, whatever anyway.
Sure. Let me show you an example of this, Josh. And I don't think you were on the call the other day when I did this.
No.
And again, thank you everybody for being here. I hope this is helpful to you. It is helpful to me selfishly because I'm learning what people's struggles are. And that helps me build better products and make better podcasts. So under this podcast template right here, you see this, Josh?
Yeah.
So this used to be like 6 things. Now it's like 22, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, like under the podcast template, one of them is record episode. Like, well, duh, right? It's part of my workflow, right? And what order I do these things is really important, not just that they're on there, right? And so I put links to other services that I use. Episode Square Image. Well, I make that on Canva, so just put the link right there, right? When I make a giveaway PDF, those free guides I talked about, this is the tool I use, right? Giveaway rectangular image. Well, it's the same as here, but make it simple and put it here. This is my workflow, okay? Now, I used to have Instagram images 3, and I need to delete this. Actually, no. So this is different. I need to grab a quote for one of these social images. So I should have 3 quotes from the episode. And then the next step is that I make these Instagram images, right? And the point is, these are all parts of one podcast episode. So for one client, you might have 20 things to do as an onboarding, right? But you have one note to keep track of this. The problem is, like if you use like Asana or Basecamp, these could all be individual tasks with dates, right? But can you imagine what the reminders window would look like? How long it would be, right? If I had these for all my projects, it's unruly. And that's where the reminders area is like, you know, an orphan. Like it's like this forgotten child. And I wish that they had a better way of handling it, right? But anyway, I hope that's helpful in some regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Great. So Dan, you had mentioned Evernote's changing pricing policies. They have changed them, yes. What version do you use? Plus, Premium, Basic? I use the Premium. And if you Google Andy Traub, 58 cents, okay? I know you probably Googled it yesterday, but Google it again today. Andy Traub, 58 cents. You'll find a video I made where I talk about how I get Evernote for 58 cents a month. And I'll just show you, if you haven't seen it. There are these notebooks you can buy on eBay, and you can buy them other places too. But you can get a notebook like this, okay, and it's an Evernote notebook. It's a little moleskin, and it's from Italy or something, so you never say it right. But it's got, you know, the little different kinds of grid pages. In the back, it's got these little stickers, and you can take the stickers out and put them on a page. When you take a picture, it'll automatically tag it. I don't do that, but it's a cool feature. Okay. So in the back, it's got a code, which I already redeemed this one. But it's got a code for 3 months of Evernote for free. Premium. So you pay $15 for the notebook, and you get what used to be $3.75 a month was the average. It's actually gone up. So the value of these codes has actually gone up because there's another code in the back of this one. Actually, no, it dropped in a bookmarker. But these are great notebooks, but also you're going to get your premium features much cheaper because you buy a $15 notebook and you get essentially what ended up being $15 or $13 worth of credit to Evernote. So I did a video about that on YouTube. So obviously you can do the math. You know, you can do the math and say, hey, you know, you just paid for a notebook, or, you know, either I got a free notebook or I got free Evernote. But either way, you get the idea, right? Mm-hmm. It's not very much fun to make a video that says get a notebook for 58 cents. Say you get Evernote for 58 cents a month, or, you know, it ends up being like an 85% savings. But I'll tell you what, since the price of Evernote went up since I made that video, it's even cheaper. Like I might actually get Evernote for free because of those Evernote codes. Because you get 3 free months, and I think they cost me anywhere from $12 to $15 each. So I got the premium because I just want all the features. I don't want to mess with it. I think it's worth it. And again, I use it every single day, repeatedly. And I do it because I want all the features, and also I want the company to stay alive. Yep. You know, it's like my investment plan. So just look at evernote.com/pricing. It'll tell you, it has a really nice comparison chart of what you get and don't get. The biggest restriction, 2 restrictions they've done that they've tweaked is one, you cannot have offline. One, you don't get the email functionality to email a note into Evernote on the basic basic level. And 2, and this is the biggest one they just did, is it limits you to only have 2 devices where you can have offline Evernote access.
Yeah, that's the biggie. Yep.
It's biggie. But I'll just say this, like I'll put it on a limb, like if you use Evernote as much as you could, and I think should use Evernote, and that's my opinion, then I think you'll think it's the best $70 I spend every year. Right? Like there's certain things I bought, like I got this coffee mug for free, but it was a World Domination Summit, and I got another one for, I think, my mother-in-law or something. And it's like, you know, sometimes you spend $30 and you go, that was kind of a crummy meal out with the family. And sometimes you spend $30 and you're like, it's the best $30. This is a clean canteen, Klean. And it's like $30 for a mug. Are you kidding me? This has been dropped off the top of my car. And, you know, I mean, it's amazing. And yeah, it was $30. The other one I bought, but I literally can't drink coffee out of it. It's too hot. When I go to a coffee shop, I have them fill this up and I say, give me an empty mug. You're like, okay. And I have to slowly pour it out because I can't. So my point is, what's much of a tangent, but it will be worth it. I really believe that. It will be worth it.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Okay. And I don't get any money from that.
Okay.
But, you know, I just think it's worth it if you lean into it. And here's the fundamental reason I believe so much in Evernote is because if it can help me, it can help anybody. Because I don't think systematically and strategically. I really am scattered. And that's why Evernote's perfect for me, because I can just throw everything in there, right? Mm-hmm. All right, let's open up to anybody else who has questions. You can unmute or you can type in the chat. We're coming up on an hour here. We can end shortly if you like. So does anybody have any questions they want to just speak into? their mic after they unmute.
So
Into the chat.
yeah, so Andy, you mentioned that you just like throw stuff in Evernote. And I think one of the things that's one of the questions that always is in my brain before trying to use Evernote again, is like, oh man, what structure should I use? Like, how do I set up my notes and all that stuff?
Right.
And I'm kind of wondering, is like, should I even bother with that at first? Maybe just throw everything in and just tag it all, and then kind of like, I don't know, go through and organize it afterwards. And like, I don't know, like, does that question make sense?
Yeah, I generally, and you'll start to get a system in place. I mean, the danger is to say, how should I organize my bookshelf? Well, just start putting books on it. Well, then I have to go back and reorganize it, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you can think, what am I going to do? But I think the questions you need to ask yourself are, what tags am I going to use for this? Not, should I put it in Evernote or not? Put everything in Evernote. Like, put everything you would ever want or need inside of Evernote, right?
Yeah.
Read a great article about marriage, put it in Evernote. Got your tax return, put it in Evernote. Your tax documents, your bank statements, your voter's registration information, whatever it is. One of my favorite things to put in Evernote, one of my favorite things to do, how many times you got an email that has like a coupon for like a store, and you're like, I want to, like, there's a pizza place. I love it. And every time they send me a coupon via email, I put it in Evernote. Because I don't want to go looking through my email for the 87 other times they sent me a receipt or a coupon. I go in my Evernote and I find it. I show it to them and they scan it. And away we go. Now, that's a silly little thing. It's just a silly little example. But life is, every day is 1,000 little silly things, right, that I'm not going to remember. So I do tag that coupon, right? But generally, because it's searching the text inside of the email I forwarded, I can just type in mellow mushroom.
Yeah.
Recent note is going to be the coupon, and then they scan it, right? So what's your system? Again, use this, use a whiteboard, use a piece of paper and pen, whatever it might be, and think about, what information am I getting in? How do I need to start to organize it? And it's no different than a file folder system. You start here and you go, I need another folder for that. I need another folder for that. That's fine. You can add them as you go on.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a bunch of stuff already in there, I showed you all how to organize notes that are already in there that you need to organize, which is type a word that applies to all of those, and then you can highlight them all using Control or Command A, and then you can tag them all at the same time.
Yeah.
So I would just begin by putting everything you possibly can in. That would be my advice.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions in the chat?
Hey, Andy. It's Kevin.
Kevin, what's up?
Hey, sorry, I joined late here. It's much earlier in California.
It is. Good morning.
Good morning. Part of the reason why I have Evernote and I use it, but I find that I'll put stuff in Dropbox first, and then move it also in Evernote. And then, so over time, I put less and less in Evernote. And my big fear is getting the information out of Evernote if I ever decide to leave Evernote. Maybe you already covered that this morning, but have you tested out, like, what's the process? Like, if you want to stop using Evernote, can you pull easily all of your documents out, dump them in Dropbox or something like that in case you decide you don't want to use Evernote anymore?
So let me ask a real quick clarifying question. When you say I'm putting documents, do you mean like literally a PDF, or is it text?
No, like a PDF, like you gave the example of like a PDF of your tax return, know?
Perfect. Okay. So what I did earlier, and can you see my screen, Kevin? You have to unmute yourself real quick. Sorry. I don't know if you're in a conversation or at work.
I can see you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. So an example of this is if I choose a bunch of notes here. I'm going to choose a bunch of notes. One of the options is to save attachments. So if I do that, then I can take all the attachments out of these notes and I can save them. So that would be a way that you can actually take all the contents of your Evernote and then move them. Because the contents of your notes are going to have either the text, images, or attachments. If you take a PDF and you put it in a note, that would be an attachment. take that same PDF and put it in Dropbox. Obviously, that's not an attachment. That's just a normal file. So the answer is yes, you can get it out as far as I understand using that Save Attachments. They do let you take your data with you, right? Now, if you Google how to go from OneNote to Evernote, there's like 0. All of them are how to go from Evernote to OneNote. And there's a tool that will let you move from Evernote to OneNote. It'll import those Evernote notes. So I have PDFs, as an example, I put in both places. I have audio I put in both places. But I would say I am becoming increasingly probably 80-20 when it comes to a physical file. It's a hard question to answer, Kevin, because I love Evernote for its functionality of searching my PDFs. I love that I can open up a PDF and draw on it, and then go into Evernote, and it'll go find my handwritten things on my PDFs or my digitally written things on my PDF. Whereas Dropbox is not going to do that. So it's really dependent for you personally, but I think that Evernote is great for recalling that. So if you remember that you go, I paid $20,412.88 last year in my taxes. Where's that form? You can type in that dollar amount, and it's going to pop up that PDF in Evernote. You do that with Dropbox, it's probably not going to do that. It might, but the Evernote search feature is just lights out amazing. So if it's really something you want to go find later, but it's a great example. I have a Dropbox with PDFs of my tax documents. I also have them in Evernote. And I have a W-9 over here in Dropbox. I also have a W-9 in Evernote. So yeah, sometimes you're going to have them in both. But most of my information is going to be in Evernote. I think of Evernote as sort of my working memory. It's stuff I'm working with, has got my hands on, and then Dropbox is sort of my, it's my vault. Right, I'm gonna put stuff there, maybe for later. But I use Dropbox a lot less than I use Evernote because I want stuff to be flexible and available. But you're not going to do it wrong. Just do it in a way that works for you, and if that means you put it in both, great. All right.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, well, I'm going to post this replay at takepermission.com, also on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/AndyTraub. And if you have questions about some real basic Evernote stuff, if you go to my site, probably in the sidebar, there will be a box where you can just get a 5-day email course on Evernote, and it's basically, basics about notes and tagging and shortcuts and note links and something else. Somewhere in the series is an option to buy my paid course. I'm telling you that because I don't want this to be a sales pitch, but that's in that email series. And if you have other questions about Evernote or your digital organization, again, it benefits me if you ask me those things. So you can always send me an email at andy@takepermission.com. And I hope this has been a help to you. So thanks for your time, everybody.